So the first thing that farmers always say to me is, who are you, what do you want? So I'm going to start off by doing a little explanation of, who we are, what it is we're set up to do, and how we do it, basically. And then I'll go into a bit more detail about our recent agricultural project, which is the Magnesium Limestone project, looking at surface and groundwater interactions, looking at some of the groundwater monitoring that's been going on in the local area, talking a little bit about how we've delivered the project through our farm visits, which have been supported by Northumbrian Water, Rob Cooper. And also we'll have a bit of a summary as to what the recommendations have been following those visits and what our plans are moving forward, really. So we're a small organisation. We've been going since 2008. We were the amalgamation of two charities doing similar sorts of things, the Weardale Environmental Trust and the River Wear Environmental Trust. So we joined together and joined something called the Rivers Trust Movement, which is a national initiative, which you can see from the map. There's individual rivers trusts for almost every single river catchment across the country now. I think we're up to about 52 rivers trusts across the country. So, and what this enables us to do is to get specific organisations to really gather in-depth information about individual river catchments, rather than having expertise on a regional basis. Having individual rivers trust to get to know about the actual catchment itself is a massive benefit, because each individual catchment has its individual problems and issues. For example, on the Weir, we're completely different to the Tyne. We're more urban, we've got more metal mines, that sort of thing. So it enables us to get to know landowners and what the issues are that need to be addressed and develop projects to address them. We're run by a board of 8 trustees. We've got farmers, we've got fishermen, we've got freshwater ecologists, we've got businessmen, all sat around the table to help us develop projects and prioritise where we put our efforts, and also signpost us on to expertise and people that can support us in our activities. We're up to 7 staff members now. We've got education officers, project officers, admin managers and a director. So we cover a wide range of different aspects in terms of catchment management. So we don't just look at surface water bodies. We're not just looking directly at water courses. We're looking at the entire catchment and the entire water cycle as well. So I've got some pictures coming up here somewhere. Where have they disappeared to? That doesn't matter, but as soon as the rain hits the surface, we're interested in what happens next, really. Obviously, from agriculture, we've got the soil and we've got the nutrients and chemicals on the land. We've got the heavy metal mining as well up at the top end of Weardale. We've got urban runoff as well. So as soon as that water hits the surface, we're interested in what's going on. So this is how we go about doing our work, really. A lot of our projects are set up as partnership projects. We get funding mostly through Environment Agency and local authorities. A lot of the funding has specific criteria to hit, and a lot of the work that I do is focused on the Water Framework Directive, which looks at specific reasons for failure. And the reason why I'm here is because there's reasons for failure which are associated with agriculture. We also do projects with Heritage Lottery Fund and sponsorship. We depend a lot on the sharing of data in order to deliver these types of projects. So monitoring of watercourses, we do a lot of GIS information, looking at specific data sets which can be used to prioritise areas for delivery. And we also look at sharing information in terms of legislation and best practice as well. Expertise, we have a lot of catchment-based expertise within the trust. You know, we know the entire Weir catchment by individual watercourses. We know exactly what's going on near enough every single stream, beck and burn. But we can't know everything, so we rely on a lot of support from other partners, such as Northumbrian Water. We do a lot of research with Durham University. We also chair something called the Weir Catchment Partnership, which has a large number of river stakeholders, such as the Environment Agency, Northumbrian Water, the University, Wildlife Trust, Natural England, and they all sit around the table to talk about specific river-based issues and identify opportunities to put them right through project development and also influencing, strategic plans. So when I'm out and about talking to people, any sort of concerns that people have, go to the Weir Catchment Partnership, and they can actually have quite a lot of influence in terms of strategic planning and things like that. So, we listen and we take it to quite a senior level in terms of regional prioritisation. And just finishing really, the integration of stakeholder priorities and project development. So that's taking, what we hear on the ground and then integrating that into more strategic plan, project prioritisation and funding as well. We can influence, where some of the money is being spent. So that takes us on to this project which I've been working on over the past 6 months. And I think this project sort of symbolises, what we do as a trust, going back to when the water falls on the surface. So over the years, I've been working on surface water bodies. Have I got a light? Oh, yeah. So surface water bodies. I've been working for the past 5 years with farmers, looking at surface water runoff going into watercourses. But what we've been looking at during the past 6 months is, what's happening down here as well. So looking at groundwater, in specifically the Magnesium Limestone aquifer, which is what we're stood on right now, basically, because these groundwater resources are used for abstraction. They also provide baseline flows for surface water bodies. So looking after this is crucial in terms of abstractions, drinking water, and health of surface water bodies as well. And it's not just agriculture that impacts on groundwater. We've also got landfill, we've got urban areas as well. The whole system is interconnected, so we're looking at every single element and how it impacts on surface and groundwaters. But for this project, we've concentrated on agriculture, and this is the reason why. The Environment Agency have been doing a lot of monitoring around the Haswell area. They've got 3 boreholes. So we've got one at Heatherview, one at Ludworth, and another at High Fallowfield. You can see the Ludworth and High Fallowfield boreholes are quite a way below the drinking water threshold, whereas the Heatherview one is consistently above the drinking water standard there. So this has led to a failure under the Water Framework Directive. So as a result, we've put together a project to go out and identify opportunities which can prevent the nitrates from going down to groundwater or reduce that connectivity. So the Magnesium Limestone aquifer, it goes from Darlington all the way up to Sunderland. It covers an area of around 480 square kilometres. It's used for abstracting It provides base flow for surface water bodies, and due to these usages, it's also got a lot of protection zones on it, which a lot of you will be familiar with the nitrate vulnerable zones, source protection zones, and this is the reason why we're here. The Water Framework Directive, failure due to nitrate. So following this classification, we put together a bit of a plan, really. It's very similar to some of the projects that I've been working on in terms of surface water bodies. So we prioritise areas to go out and visit. I'll show you a map that we use to do that in a second. But due to funding, we were limited to 6 farm visits this financial year. And those farm visits were carried out with Rob to look at soil management, how nutrients managed around the farm, source pathway receptor, so looking at surface pathways and also surface to groundwater pathways as well. So looking at springs and fissures, because those are some of the impacts that we're quite familiar with around the Mag Lime area. Surface water runoff, yard and track management as well. So these farm visits are just half a day, a quick little scoot around the farm, and then just coming up with a series of recommendations which we can then take forward for applying for further funding to actually do capital delivery, as well as signposting farmers to other organisations that can provide more in-depth information. So at the end of the farm visit, you get a nice flashy farm report with maps and photographs, opportunities and costed opportunities to carry forward for funding applications. So this is how we prioritised our farm visits during this project. On the map to the right, you can see that we have the green, orange and red bits. Now the red bits are the bits that we've prioritised. This is high priority in terms of connectivity to groundwater. So high connectivity focuses on the depth of superficial drift and also the composition of the superficial drift, which is the boulder clay between the topsoil and the bedrock. So by using this connectivity map, we overlaid that with landowner details and then prioritised farms on that area that we could go and talk to. So from these farm visits, these are generally the recommendations that we found. All of them tie in really, really well to the previous speakers. So in terms of soil management, looking at cultivation, reducing the use of the plough, avoiding leaving bare soil over the winter. This can cause leaching of nutrients down into the groundwater. Adopting a minimal tillage sort of approach, as the first speaker was talking about, we can look at increasing organic matter through reducing the use of the plough, adopting the min-till, and let's work with nature as well. The cover crops do a lot of the cultivation for us, so especially in the high-risk areas. One thing that I am looking to do is to circulate the risk maps so we can look at prioritising some of these options on the high-risk areas, because I think that is where farmers in the area face difficulties, really, is understanding all of the different priorities in terms of Natural England priorities, the Environment Agency priorities. So it's getting that joined up approach. So getting your options in the right place by using these guides is something that I'm looking to circulate as part of this project. Increase organic matter, we've spoke about that in the previous ones. Really good for drainage, water retention, nutrient retention. So that's something that we've identified as a good opportunity. Location of stewardship and EFAs, again, going back to the risk map, if every farmer had a groundwater connectivity map, they could see where they could prioritise where these options go. It's easy to see your surface water bodies, where to put your buffer strips and things like that, but knowing the connectivity with groundwater is a lot more difficult. So being able to have these data sets available would help, during the prioritisation process. And you could put in sort of in-field options such as beetle banks, because from the map and from talking to farmers as well, soil depths can vary quite a lot just in the field. Speaking to quite a lot of farmers, the use of the plough, some areas there's such a thin soil depth, you're almost hitting bedrock in some places. So adopting in-field options to avoid, creating that pathway, as it were, down to the groundwater, those are well worth looking at. So looking at yard and track management, we've done a lot of this sort of work in the past, looking to protect surface water bodies. So looking at drainage, just making sure your drainage is all connected up in terms of roof runoff. I've gone to a lot of farms, and sometimes there's a few broken downcomers on the sheds. That creates a lot of standing water in around the farmyard, which can then go to surface water, and it can go to groundwater as well. So making sure that they're connected up to keep the clean and dirty water systems separate. Rainwater harvesting is another option as well. Looking at using, some of these big tanks and maybe replacing some of the mains water which is used around the farm. Can provide a financial benefit as well as protecting water resources around the farm. Silt traps, a very, very simple option. You can see down the bottom right, we've got one just off of a track. All that does is just intercept a lot of the silt and whatever else is lying on that track, and diverts it into this silt trap before it then overflows into the surface water bodies. So very simple approaches, and these are opportunities which we include in farm reports, which we are hoping to include in future funding opportunities. We've done a lot of delivery with farmers in the past using capital grants which we administer. So by participating in these sorts of projects, we're effectively putting projects on the shelf which we can then support you in delivering, financially. So what next? We want to continue what we're doing, basically. We want to offer more free farm visits and events like this. We want to deliver practical interventions. This year we've managed to provide these reports, but we haven't had any money to actually deliver practical works. So with the Water Environment Grant just around the corner, we're looking to put in funding applications to include capital funding for rainwater harvesting systems, dirty machine washdown areas, biobeds, looking at silt track upgrades, all of these sorts of things which may have benefits in terms of surface and groundwater protection. So that's what we're working on at the minute, really, is identifying these funding sources, getting all these opportunities sent off, and hopefully, we'll be around for, some years to come doing this sort of thing. So we've got a sign-in sheet over there with an email column. So if you want to join our mailing list, get your name and details down there, and we can keep you up to date with future projects and invite you to participate in the projects. Because at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. We want the soil and nutrients to stay on the land rather than go into our watercourses. So, that's what we're here for. We're here to work with you to make that happen, basically. So, feel free to get in touch, and I'll look forward to working with you on the future, hopefully. Thank you very much.